Welcome to Star Expose. If you love celebrity news and real entertainment updates, you're in the right place. There are television icons, and then there's Kelly Ripa. For more than 2 decades, she wasn't just on the screen. She was the morning, the coffee companion, the spark that made millions of people smile before they faced the chaos of their day. For 20 years, she was a voice, a laugh, and a light in living rooms across America. But what happens when that light quietly decides it's time to dim? Not out of defeat, but out of choice. That morning began like any other show. The studio lights glowed, the audience buzzed, and the crew, people who had worked beside her for years, moved through the usual rhythm of another broadcast day. But something was different. The air carried a strange calm, a quiet energy that hinted that this wouldn't be just another episode. Kelly Ripa arrived earlier than usual, as if time itself had slowed down for her. She greeted the staff with her trademark warmth, her voice soft, her smile steady, but behind those bright eyes, there was something deeper, a stillness, a peace that only comes when you've made a life-changing decision. She walked onto the stage, paused, and rested her hand on the desk, that familiar desk she'd sat behind for over 20 years. To anyone else, it was just a prop. To her, it was the witness to an era, to laughter, to nerves, to memories, and to the hundreds of mornings where she'd poured her heart into the world, one broadcast at a time. As the show began, her usual banter filled the room, but the sparkle was softer, almost nostalgic. Her husband and co-host, Mark Consuelos, sat beside her, completely unaware of the storm she was holding inside. Then a moment came, a pause that hung in the air a little too long. Kelly took a breath, that kind of deep, trembling breath you take when your heart knows the next words will change everything. And then, through the bright studio lights and the hum of the cameras, she said it. "This will be my last show." The world froze. You could hear the gasp ripple through the audience. Even Mark blinked in stunned silence, his usual calm replaced by disbelief. And yet, Kelly didn't flinch. Her eyes shimmered, her voice cracked, but she stood tall in her truth. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't part of a plan. It was simply real, raw, and human. For a woman who had spent half her life smiling through the lens, it was a moment of pure authenticity. As the crowd processed her words, Kelly thanked them, the viewers, the crew, her co-hosts, her fans, for letting her be part of their lives. Her voice trembled, and for a moment she had to stop, pressing her hand to her chest as tears welled up. The audience, usually loud and laughing, was completely silent. And then, applause. A wave of love, of understanding, of heartbreak. Some people in the studio were crying. Others were smiling through tears. It wasn't just a farewell to a show. It was a goodbye to a chapter of their own mornings. For 2 decades, Kelly had been more than a television host. She was family. She was the relatable friend who spilled coffee on her outfit 5 minutes before going live. The mom who could joke about teenage chaos, the wife who laughed at her husband's worst puns on national television. And now, she was saying goodbye to all of it. Not because she had to, but because her heart told her it was time. Behind that decision was a story of exhaustion, love, and self-preservation. Kelly had given everything to her work. The 4 a.m. alarms, the endless rehearsals, the camera-ready smiles, even on the hardest mornings. For years, she carried the pressure of live TV while balancing motherhood, marriage, and the never-ending scrutiny that comes with fame. But somewhere along the way, the woman who made everyone else's mornings brighter had started losing her own light. She'd hinted at it before, in small ways. The wistful stories about her kids, now grown, the pauses when she talked about time passing too quickly, the moments when she'd laugh about retirement with a twinkle in her eye, even though part of her meant it. The truth was simple. Kelly wasn't walking away from television, she was walking toward life. She wanted to be more than the woman in the studio chair. She wanted to be the mom who could stay up late without worrying about the next day's broadcast, the wife who could laugh at her husband's worst puns on national television. And maybe most importantly, she wanted to rediscover who she was when the cameras stopped rolling. For someone who'd built a career on being open, honest, and real, this moment was the ultimate act of authenticity.
Mark reached for her hand. His eyes, full of pride, surprise, and love, said everything words couldn't. He hadn't known she'd make the announcement that way, but that's who Kelly was, fearless, spontaneous, and always guided by her heart. The producers quickly shifted gears. The teleprompter faded out, and the giant studio screens came alive with a surprise montage. Clips from Kelly's earliest days with Regis Philbin, her first nervous interviews, her infectious laughter with Michael Strahan, and those hilarious moments when live TV went completely off the rails. Famous faces appeared on screen. Ryan Seacrest, Michael Strahan, old co-stars and celebrity friends, each leaving her a message. Some funny, some tearful, all heartfelt. The studio was quiet, except for the sound of memories. Kelly sat beside Mark, wiping tears and laughing in between. It was a portrait of gratitude, a woman at peace, looking back on a career that had not only shaped her, but shaped the mornings of millions. Through the laughter, she kept shaking her head, almost in disbelief. "I can't believe it's over," she whispered softly, half to herself, half to the world. But endings have a beauty of their own, because endings mean you've lived something worth missing. Kelly's farewell wasn't about fame or farewell tours. It was about choosing life, unfiltered, unplanned, and unapologetically hers. It was about showing that even the strongest people, even the ones who seem unstoppable, deserve to rest, to breathe, and to start anew. And that's what made it so powerful. As the cameras panned across the crowd one final time, people were smiling through their tears. It wasn't sadness, not really. It was pride. It was love. It was the quiet acknowledgement that they'd witnessed something rare. The moment when a star stopped performing and simply was. When the final credits rolled, Kelly didn't rush off the stage. She lingered. She walked around, hugged the crew, waved to the audience one last time. And as she stood in that familiar glow of the studio lights, she smiled. A soft, genuine smile that said it all. "Thank you. I loved this, but now it's time to go home." In the days that followed, tributes flooded social media. Fans shared clips of her funniest moments, her most emotional interviews, her infectious laughter with Michael Strahan, and those hilarious moments when live TV went completely off the rails. Famous faces praised her authenticity. Viewers wrote messages saying how she'd been there through their mornings, their breakups, their first jobs. And Kelly? She stayed quiet for a while, enjoying, perhaps for the first time in decades, a real morning. No alarms, no cameras, no rush. Just a cup of coffee, the sound of her home, and the kind of peace that only comes after doing something brave. Because bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just the gentle whisper that says, "It's okay to stop." Kelly's departure wasn't just an ending. It was a reminder that success doesn't have to mean sacrifice. That even in the glittering world of television, there's nothing more beautiful than being human. And that sometimes the most powerful goodbye is the one said with love. So wherever she goes next, whether it's a quiet life out of the spotlight or a new adventure waiting on the horizon, one thing is certain. Kelly Ripa's story will always live on. Not just in reruns or headlines, but in the laughter, the tears, and the mornings she helped us all get through, one smile at a time. Thanks for watching Star Expose. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next big story.